officially, this is episode 1 of InfoSystems' new video and podcast series. Our target audience, we're developing some really, hopefully some good conversational content to put out there for local business leaders and regional business leaders, really, because I think there's a need. Companies around our region need some really experienced, high-level IT input to both IT and business. And so, InfoSystems being the respected company we are in the community, I'm taking that on to produce this podcast. And so, since this is podcast number 1, and I'm Josh Davis, Marketing Director at InfoSystems, and my special guest today is Mike Mangione. Do I pronounce the E?
That's perfect.
Mike Mangione, who you're VP of Strategy, Business Strategy and Marketing at
Absolutely.
Sword and Shield in Knoxville, Tennessee. So you have the honor of being the very first guest ever on our podcast. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm honored, and I appreciate it. So thank you for having me, and honestly, thank you for putting this together and filling that gap. I think you're right. I think it's something that we need in the region, something we need in the IT community. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Cool. So Sword and Shield, Knoxville, InfoSystems, Chattanooga. You got hour and a half, maybe 2-hour drive to get from one to the other. Did you have any inspirational moments on your car ride today?
No, but I passed a lot of police officers,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, I make that drive in about 1 hour.
Oh, man.
So I have
Yeah.
to really hit the brakes when I see those people. But no, just I make this drive quite often.
Yeah.
We've been in the Chattanooga market as Sword and Shield for quite a long time, and so for me, you just gravity takes you south, and it's about the easiest drive I do.
Yeah.
So I really like getting to stop in Chattanooga and not having to keep going to Atlanta when I can.
I brought that up because, a lot of people really, car rides are like one of those inspirational times where they can sit and think or whatever. It's not really, it doesn't do that for me. Maybe it did for you. So in the shower, car rides, when you're talking to your mother-in-law, when are your inspirational moments where you really, start thinking about things and get those like nice epiphanies?
Typically in conversations like this,
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that kind of needs a sounding board, and so I need that feedback and that constant. For me, it's just free association going on up here all the time,
Yeah.
and I need somebody to kind of help me rein it in and say, hey, that was an inspirational moment. Otherwise, I just think all day, and then I go to bed and go, I wonder if I had any good thoughts today.
Yeah.
And so I really rely on my team and other people to bounce ideas off of and really kind of help rein me in and say, that's a good one.
Yeah.
The first 6, not so much, but that last one, you need to hold on to that.
You sometimes late at night, you have that, what you think is like a really your mind flips onto business for a second for some reason, and you think you have some groundbreaking thought, and you write it down, and the next day when you get to work and you look at it, and you're like, yeah, I was tired.
Right. Absolutely.
What's weird is, I don't know if this is the case for anybody else. I may just be a really strange person, but for some reason, I start getting like my gears start cranking when I'm watching like keynote addresses or, webinars or, stuff like that. Because the other day I started watching the HubSpot, their big marketing conference. I started watching the keynote, and like within 5 minutes I was over at my whiteboard like writing stuff down. I don't know why that happens, but for me it's not the shower and it's not the car ride. It's when I watch webinars or I don't even tune into the webinar usually for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then thoughts start hitting and I move on. So it's kind of a strange thing. Sword and Shield is a very well respected IT security firm. I don't know the company history, but if I'm not mistaken, I think you all got your start working with the federal government. I can't remember what that was, but in some way working with the federal government, and I know you all have to have some very strong opinions and some very useful insights into what's going on in today's IT security marketplace, because every week, it seems right now, we're hearing about Equifax or the Securities and Exchange Commission, or, and these are major entities that have lots of sensitive data. So do companies in our region need to be worried about cyber attacks, or is it just these huge entities that are the victims or the targets of attacks?
No, absolutely. Companies in our region, we see it every day. We do a lot of incident response work where a company calls us and says, this is happening on our network, please come help us. And so we see all kinds of ransomware, which you've probably heard of, and
Yep.
The wire transfer scams where people wire money to what they think is their bank, or their bank wires money for them to what they think is an active R&D project, and it's not real. And we see that all the time. I mean, we have customers up and down this 75 corridor from Chattanooga to the Tri-Cities that have wired money away that they will never see again. Sometimes they catch it. Sometimes it's the FBI that knocks on their door and says that money, you're never going to see it again. So,
Wow.
The way hacking works is interesting. And when you look at that specific question around large enterprises versus medium-sized businesses, it kind of makes you think, what's easier for a hacker? So is it easier to go and break into a bank and, hope there's a way to get into the safe, and once you get into the safe, hope that they have a couple $1 million in cash? Or if there's a city that was riddled by a recent hurricane and nobody's there, is it easier to loot 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 houses and probably not get caught? And so that's what these hackers think. I mean, they want to do what they can and not get caught. So really what we tell people is, if you're a small and medium business, you probably don't have necessarily the same budget as one of these large organizations,
Right.
although it doesn't seem to help. They get popped too. But
Sure.
you need to make yourself a more difficult target, because if you just have your front door open, someone's probably going to walk in and rob you.
Yeah.
And so we just want companies in that middle, medium-sized business, SMB space, to do the very simple things. Train your employees, configure your firewall correctly. Just some of the things that they can do almost cost-free to make themselves a harder target.
Now, you mentioned a couple of things, training employees, configuring firewall. A lot of people are probably focused on Russian hackers. I mean, that's what's in the news, the election system and all, that's obviously top of mind, but it's probably, I would assume Russian hacking is probably pretty rare for local companies. There's probably a lot of other types of vulnerabilities that they need to address first. What are those other threats that companies should really be on the lookout for?
Well, it is the Russians.
It is. It's all
Yeah,
the Russians.
well, no, it's not only the Russians, but I used to work with a guy, and he said, Russia's after your money, the Eastern Bloc, Russia, they're after your money. So yeah, they're here. They're hacking businesses all over East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. So it is the Russians. And then he would say the Chinese, they're after your secrets, because the Chinese already have all of the Americans' money.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but really, there's several different types of people you have to watch out for. It's the people after money, the people after your IP, your intellectual property, and hacktivists. Hacktivists are the people that were involved with the Ashley Madison hack, people involved with the Sony hack, and they're just there to prove a point. And so they're dangerous as well. But really, it is overseas threats, it's state-sponsored attacks. It's those people are going after small businesses in East Tennessee all the time because it's easy for them, and there's really no way anything can happen for them to get caught.
Yeah.
Could they? Yes, but is the FBI going to send people to Russia because they stole 70 grand from a company here in East Tennessee? Probably not.
Yeah.
So
Now, there's a lot of external threats, but something that a lot of business owners may not always think about is there are also internal threats inside your company. Do you have any, insight or recommendations for business leaders for how they might approach protecting their company from employees?
certainly, and that's your biggest threat. It's your insider threat. It's your employees. That's your biggest vulnerability. There's two types. There's non-malicious, and there's malicious. Malicious would be you have a spy in your organization, you have a salesperson who's going to take a client list, you have an engineer about to change jobs and he's going to take his drawings with him and take your intellectual property. That's the malicious side. The non-malicious is just ignorance for the most part. It's somebody who's going to click on that link and that's going to give their machine credentials to these people, and once they have the machine, it's like they're sitting on your network. And then it's, does your IT department do a good enough job with user provisioning and group policy so that this one user who's going to click on a phishing email at some point, does he have access to the crown jewels of the organization? Can he get to the sensitive data? Yeah. Or do you keep those policies safe?
You know, when I didn't do any statistical research before our conversation today, but when I publish this, I'll probably publish it alongside a blog, and I can post some of the statistics. I mean, you and I have both seen the statistics with how likely you are to be compromised from an external threat versus an internal threat, and it's pretty eye-opening. So, you know, I'll publish some of those statistics with our blog, but give me an idea of how Sword and Shield works with companies. I mean, InfoSystems, a lot of times we have obviously a relationship with local companies as their IT advisors, and we handle a lot of security work, but there's also times where we collaborate with your team, with Sword and Shield, and we will bring you all in to perform, you know, certain services as part of a security initiative. So what are some of those services you guys are typically doing out there for small and mid-sized businesses, and how do you work, you know, with other partners like InfoSystems?
Certainly. So in terms of what we can do for a company, we work with companies great and small, all across the spectrum. And so some of these people have zero cybersecurity program, policies, procedures, what have you, and we come in and we are their security department. We are who comes in and handles everything security and compliance related. Some of these companies have as many people in their security, information security division as we have in our entire company. And for those, we typically provide specialized services. And so it really varies. Some of the things we've been doing for quite a while is there's network penetration testing, commonly called pen testing, and that's a white hat hack where we come in and we more or less hack your network, and then we show you how we did it and where your holes are and what we need to do to patch those holes so that it doesn't happen when a bad guy does it. That's a very common service. We have managed security services, which, you know, you can kind of equate to an ADT, where we have a 24/7 operations center, security operations center, where we've got eyes on your network. And when we see a malicious signature and when we see something happening on your network that doesn't make sense, it's not in the normal behavior of your network, we can pick up the phone and call you and say, you know, hey, do you guys open up an office in the Ukraine? Well, you know, you're doing business with them, and there's data being passed back and forth. You may want to look into that. We help with compliance, specifically PCI and HIPAA, but we also do a lot of work around all different types of compliance, whether it's just a common framework like NIST or ISO, or whether it's something specific like NCUA for credit unions or EI3PA for credit reporting, which would be Equifax type compliance. And so really it's just all across the board.
Now, just moving from Sword and Shield as a company to some of your community initiatives you're involved in, coming up on October 17th and 18th, I think, in Knoxville. Sword and Shield is the presenting sponsor of a community event focused on IT security, and that's the Edge Security Conference, and InfoSystems as a sponsor will be there as well. Can you give me a little insight into what that event is like? I mean, for our business leaders who are tuning in to the podcast, what are they going to see at that event, and what do they need to know about it that they may not know?
Certainly. You know, that event is special to us being the presenting sponsor, and really what makes that event different from a lot of other conferences is we really focus on real world cybersecurity challenges and real world solutions. So a lot of times when you go to information security events or trade shows or what have you, they want to put experts up on a stage, and the experts tell you how smart they are theoretically, or they talk about some very technical things that are far over my head. We have some of that, and we have some very smart people on the stage, but we really work with our speakers and try and work the angle of, we want a business owner or a C-level executive or somebody in IT management to be able to go back to their office after 2 days of this conference and institute something that's going to help them. Give them some actionable intelligence that they can go home and use, so that it's not just sitting there going, wow, cybersecurity is really hard and these people are really smart.
Yeah, you just kind of assume that this person speaking is really smart because you don't understand anything that they're saying.
People might be assuming that I'm smart right now, and I would have no idea.
Well, I'm not going to make a comment. You might hit me. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
So I browsed the speaker list for that conference because, I mean, obviously we're going to be there. We're there to, interface and network with local business leaders because we're an IT services company. We will have some people there who are also interested in the content, because there are some very impressive speakers on the list. And just to kind of run through some of the speakers that I noticed, Tuesday's keynote, the first day, features a couple of white hat hackers. I have no idea what white hat hacking is, but apparently these guys are really renowned. Wednesday's keynote is the former director of operations of the U.S. Cyber Command. That sounds way more impressive than renowned white hat hacker, but I'm sure to an IT security person it's both very impressive. But then scrolling on down the list, you have a security executive from HBO. You mentioned Netflix. I mean, I'm sure they have IT security. Or Sony, you mentioned Sony, getting hacked, and hacktivists just releasing some of their intellectual property. I'm sure HBO has a great perspective on that. There's a research scientist from Wells Fargo, executives from several data center and cloud companies, attorneys, law enforcement. I mean, it seemed to me that there was a really wide variety of backgrounds and speakers and expertise, probably a lot of cool perspective there. So I don't know how much insight you have into what all those people are presenting on, but do you have any insight about why that group was chosen? And I mean, maybe it's to appeal to certain segments of businesses within our region, our footprint. What can you say about the speaker list and about all of those different backgrounds and expertise?
Well, it's really a community event, and if we want to be good stewards to the community, we really have to represent something for everyone.
Yeah.
This is our second annual conference, and some feedback we had on the first conference was, we really think that you guys did a good job advising around how to set up the tracks, because there was always something I wanted to see. And really that's John McNeely, our CEO, is in charge of speakers, and he's just very sensitive to the fact that the speakers are the content of our conference. And so he puts a lot of time and effort into making sure that there's something for everybody, and it's really just very well thought out. And that's the point, is that we want people, people are going to be paying the ticket price to come and watch speakers. So you want to set it up so that there's something for everybody. And much to what you said earlier, I know people that are 100 times more excited to see the white hat hackers than they are to see somebody from U.S. Cyber Command,
right,
and vice versa. So, it's really great to have both ends of the spectrum, and that's definitely both ends of the spectrum. You've got kind of the hacker subculture there, and we like to break stuff. We took remote control of an automated car, and we think that's great, and look at this, and you had to recall 1.4 million vehicles. They thrive on that. That's what, really motivates them and keeps them passionate about what they do. You talk about Brett Williams with Cyber Command, and it's very different. He's dealing with keeping a country safe. And so I'd imagine that's a very, very different, much more serious role. But again, I bet he's got some really wild stories, and I bet he's had some fun things to do in his tenure there. So
I don't think we're going to get all of the stories that he has to tell.
No.
There's probably some stuff that's off limits.
There's probably somebody that'll be in the crowd going, no.
Yeah.
We don't have to kill all these nice people.
The benefit for regional companies is that there is a sword and shield and an InfoSystems around here, because we both do provide some very specialized services, and we're both, extremely competent and have very high credibility and certifications in those things that we do really well. Sometimes from a marketing perspective, I'm often trying to put myself in a business owner's shoes, a local business leader's shoes, so that I can think about what is that person dealing with on a regular basis. How would they hear about InfoSystems? What would they want to know about us? I'm sure you do the same as, business development and marketing in your role. And, that's part of why I want to do this podcast series, is because I think in a lot of times those people may not even realize what they have in their own backyard. The Sword and Shields and the InfoSystems of the world. I mean, we all know who Google and Microsoft and Amazon Web Services, and we all know who those global providers are. And both of our companies have partners like IBM and HPE and Dell EMC and all of these global technology providers. But local companies provide that interface where we provide that expert level of competency with those tools, and can sit there and work with local business owners on all of these issues. That's just some thoughts from my perspective. I mean, you're in a similar role to me, marketing at an IT firm. What do you think about how you position Sword and Shield, or do you ever think about it from the customer's perspective on how would they hear about us, and what do they need to know, and why would they want to work with us? Do they even know that we're here right in their own backyard? Right. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, do they know that we're here, I think, is the first question that you have to answer in marketing. Is we have to attract, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that brand awareness, that recognition. You have to somehow get attention, which is, this is brilliant because nobody's doing this that I know of, just, in the region for the community. So that's kind of the first step. But then after that, it really comes down to, how do you differentiate yourself in a world of IT companies that are all making money, who are all probably very good at something? Mm-hmm. And I think it really does come down to the personality of your company, the intangibles. We have smart people. A lot of companies have smart people.
Yeah.
We have pen testers. Our competitors have pen testers. We have pricing. They have pricing. And you don't want to compete there, right? I mean, that's not where marketing's going to win. And so you really look at the intangibles of, how long have you been doing this? What is your experience in our industry? What does your reputation look like? Are you going to be the type of company who partners with our organization? That's really what we try to do to differentiate ourselves, is the intangible of, we're going to partner with your organization. And we do all of these different things, but we want to do the solution that's right for you. And we know you have a lot of very different pieces to your organization, and that you're not like some other company. And so, it's being a good listener and being a good partner, and getting that across in marketing isn't always easy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to be like, we're really, really good at listening to you. I mean, nobody really wants to hear that, so to speak. So
I bring that up because at the Edge Security Conference, both of our companies are going to be involved, and there are going to be a lot of other IT provider and related companies who are going to be there sponsoring, exhibiting as well. And I would imagine that's a really great place for business leaders in our region to go, to get a sense of who are the experts in my local community, in my region, who I could trust with these areas of my business. Do you have any insight on how many companies are going to be represented at the Edge conference, or maybe insight from last year's event on seeing how the business leaders interacted with them and were able to, identify people that they really need to be aware of and potentially doing business with?
I don't have the numbers. I probably should have done a little bit more homework on that.
I didn't do my homework either.
I do know from last year we had about 350 some odd attendees.
Yeah.
And I know that when you look through an attendee list of the companies that were represented and the people from those companies, there was a high level of business owners and executives and C-level people, and then there was also a high level of IT management, but then there was also the level of, you know, the IT administration and the people doing the work, and security analysts and people that are really in that security space. And so it was pretty widespread, but I can tell you, I haven't been in sales in the East Tennessee region for about 15 years. When you looked at the companies, that was really what I see as the gold. It was just about every company from Chattanooga up to the Tri-Cities represented of the people I've been calling on. So regionally, it was great. This year, we're getting a lot more pull from Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
And, you know, we really want to make it a truly regional conference. We really want to make it a national conference, but I think that's going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
We invite our customers from all over the country, and we get some people that, you know, if we were going to give away a most traveled award, you know, people come from the West Coast and the Northwest, and, you know, and we had people from Texas last year, and so we do get some of those, but really it's this region that benefits the most from the conference, and it's the, you know, name your Fortune 1000 company in East Tennessee, and they're probably there. Name your 3-letter government entity like a TVA, for instance, or the FBI. You know, they're there.
Yeah, and you said 350 maybe attendees last year. I know you had said you expect this year's event to be, I mean, you even changed venues, right?
Certainly.
This year's event is going to be significantly larger. What do you expect this year?
You know, it depends on this next month. We've already got more than we had last year registered this year. I think we could hit the 500 person mark, maybe 600 people. It really just depends on how it starts to flow here at the end. You know, it's really picked up in recent weeks, and we know people that have told us, I can't spend my Q4 money to travel and go to a conference until Q4.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of cuts it close when it's 17 days into the quarter.
Right.
So we're really looking to see some people come in. We don't know how many people are going to show up day of. You know, having thrown events in Knoxville for a long time, I've seen events with 100 people registered and 250 show up.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get a lot of day of attendance as well, of people saying, man, I really wanted to go to that and I didn't know if I could or not. And now that it's the week of and it's Monday, I'm just going to drive to Knoxville. And I think that's another thing that's great about the conference, is that Knoxville is probably one of the most easily accessible cities in the country. I mean, the cost of a hotel in Knoxville compared to even Nashville is, you know, much more cost effective. And so we really look at this as giving the East Coast somewhere where people, I mean, I think it's one of the Smoky Mountain National Parks, one of the most traveled places in the country. We can get to, you know, the Gulf of Mexico or the ocean in 6 hours either way, if you're driving as fast as I do. And
Maybe 4.
Maybe 4. But it's, you know, I think that's part of what makes it special. But yeah, we're looking for a great turnout. We've got great speakers, and everything else just seems to be coming together. So I can't give you the exact number for this year, but we're excited to see what it is.
But it will be a large event, and I know you can just look at the website, which we'll have to share the URL in just a second. But looking at the website, the number of speakers that are going to be at this event, the quality of the speakers, and then if you look at the sponsors page, the number and the quality of the sponsors, I mean, all of that really attests that this is going to be a fantastic event. So, you know, hopefully a lot of those people will end up jumping on that may not have signed up or may not have even heard about it yet. You know, hopefully this platform will help get the word out a little more. We will definitely invite our customers to come to that event, because obviously IT security is top of mind right now, and if it's not in any company, it should be. I mean, especially companies, when you handle sensitive data, and not just customer data, sensitive data on your own employees. I mean, companies are storing all types of information, and like you said, IP, all of those products and plans and everything your company does that you would not want to share with competitors or, you know, whoever. All of that stuff is at risk unless it only lives, you know, in one locked down room that's not connected to anything. And we all know that's not how business is done these days. I mean, when you think about the cloud applications, cloud storage, cloud software, and I'm sure no employees at work ever use Facebook or, you know, click on their personal Gmail account or anything like, that could potentially risk the IT security of the company. That never happens, obviously. But
Yeah,
I mean, when you just think about what's at stake, this topic should be top of mind for basically every business leader right now.
certainly, and it's one of those things where the risk is there. It's not really if anymore, but it's when.
Yeah.
And we tell people all the time, well, how do I be completely secure? Unplug it from the internet,
Yep.
which you can't afford to do. And we talk about Facebook and LinkedIn and some of these things, but you're in marketing, you need that, right? That's a platform for you, so you're going to have to connect to that.
Yeah.
So you need to have the proper training to know that when somebody sends you a link on Facebook, that clicking on that, not knowing where it's from, you could be putting your whole company at risk, or you could be putting your client list that's probably on your that you probably have access to because you need it at risk. And so it's just important to really know what the risks are, and then it's all about risk. And if you're not taking cybersecurity seriously, you're ignoring a risk that's absolutely apparent. It's in the news. Everybody knows about it. Maybe 10 years ago you could have gotten away with saying, well, we didn't know.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I mean, even my mom knows not to click on things if it looks weird.
Yeah.
And so, and she can barely start a computer. Her computer has a crank on it, and you have to pull it to get it to go.
Gasoline powered?
Gas powered telecommunication. But anyway, but it's just, ignorance is not an excuse at this point. So, not if, but when, and we just worry that people aren't doing enough.
That's basically a wrap on episode 1, the official episode 1 of our podcast here. So coming to a close, is there anything, last minute quips that you need to toss out there for Sword and Shield, or maybe you have a joke to share or something like that? I mean, we already covered Butch Jones. That's probably enough laughter for today.
Yeah, I think you just called him a joke.
Is that
your official statement?
Probably.
Okay. No, I mean, just want to thank you for having me out here. It's honored to work for Sword and Shield, and honored to partner with InfoSystems, and we appreciate the partnership and the sponsorship of Edge, and we hope people will come out to Edge. And really, if you want a technical discussion, I'm not the guy, but I can send you about 10 or 15 guys. So if you need content, I can keep it coming.
Share real quick, how do people find out more info on the conference?
The best way is to hop on the website, which is www.edgesecurityconference.com, and that's the best way. Everything's on there. You can buy your tickets, get them while they're hot. You can see all the sponsors, the speakers. We should have the agenda up there soon, if not already, and should be everything you need right there.
So since I brought you in and did this wonderful podcast today, does that mean you'll give me an allotment of tickets I can give out for free to some people around Chattanooga?
Well, all of our sponsors get a certain discount code that you can apply to the tickets. But
bingo.
Because this was so great, we can chat after this and see if we can't work something out.
Okay, so if any of the viewers out there listening to the podcast or watching the video want to go to the conference, reach out to us here at InfoSystems, and maybe if you're a potential InfoSystems customer, you never know. Maybe we can work something out and we'll pay your way, or maybe Sword and Shield will pass us some free tickets. But we'll get you in there one way or the other. So
you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to end with a go Vols, because even though Butch Jones isn't looking so hot right now, I'm still a Vols fan. We got a big game this weekend, so go Vols.
Go Vols.
All right.
Thank you.